As we continue to celebrate Earth Day, there are so many ways to take care of the Earth year-round, not just today.
And one way is to be aware of microplastics and the effects that it has on your body and our planet Earth. Today we are chatting with co-founder of Pristine Sprays to talk more about microplastics here on this Earth Day. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And to start off, let's kind of break down what microplastics are and what items this kind of falls into the category of.
Right. Breakdown is the key choice of words when it comes to microplastics, right?
That's right. That's right. And that is a great place to start. What is a microplastic? Microplastics are basically extremely small, microscopic pieces of plastic that break off of larger pieces of plastic that we use oftenly in our everyday lives. And so these are plastics that you're not really going to see with your naked eye, but that can exist in your food, in your water, and in the environment, like you mentioned.
Brandon, I feel like, I don't know, maybe for the average person, this has kind of come out in the last 10 years or so, but I first remember hearing about it as we were talking about those, the beads in the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
And how this was, it's so great because it was giving you a better clean, but those little beads are examples of microplastics, aren't they?
That's exactly right. And it did seem to come out of nowhere. And I think that the simple reason is because oftentimes they're so small that we can't see them. And so those hand sanitizer beads were good examples of larger microplastics. However, there are smaller ones that we can't see. And so no one really knew to even look for them until scientists started doing studies and they started realizing that not only are they present, but they're often all around us.
And that can kind of be a scary thought and realization. What does that mean for, household items that can release microplastics into our environment that a lot of us might not realize? Like, what are some of those items that we're overseeing?
Exactly, and that's exactly how I like to group the microplastics as things that we kind of know about already, that we hear about frequently in the news, like water bottles, food items that come in plastic containers. And then there's the ones that we don't normally know about and then we often overlook. Ones that are near and dear to my heart because we're in the industry of alternatives to wet wipes are wet wipes. They often contain plastic fibers in them. And so when they're flushed down the toilet, those plastic fibers are kind of emitted into the wastewater. The wastewater treatment facilities don't have the means to remove those microplastics. And so when the water is recycled and reintroduced into our environment, they still have them. Other examples, that paper and plastic plates, which is kind of a little bit misleading, but oftentimes paper and plastic plates have a plastic film over the top of the plate. And the meaning was completely harmless. People just didn't want the food to melt through the plate. And what happens is that microplastic film on the top, when you're using utensils on the plate, it can often release those microplastics into the food you're eating. The most recent example that was interesting in the news was chewing gum. Scientists studied both synthetic and natural chewing gums and found that both were releasing microplastics when folks were chewing them.
Interesting.
Wow, that's a crazy thought. So especially when it comes to the plastics that we can't see, what can we do about this? Is it just a matter of being more mindful when we're making our purchases? Is there anything else we can do around the house to take better care of these and make sure they go in the trash and not in the water supply? I mean, tell us what the best approach might be.
That is great. And I think that the first step is exactly what we're doing right now, talking about it, identifying the things that are obvious and maybe less obvious so that people know what are items that can release microplastics. The second step is, what do you do about it? For example, with water bottles, you can try to avoid using water bottles. However, sometimes you simply just can't because they're all around us and you're thirsty. So what you can do is just try to avoid heat, for example, with water bottles. If you leave the water bottle in your car and it gets hot, maybe not want to drink that water bottle because it's more likely that microplastic will release due to heat. For example, if you buy groceries at the grocery store and the food comes in a plastic container, don't microwave it in the microwave because that heat is likely to release some microplastics into the food. And so there are steps that you can take. There's also many alternatives. For example, we make alternatives to wet wipes. There's alternatives to paper plates with the film over it. They're just pure paper plates. They might get a little more soggy than those paper plates with the plastic film, but you don't have to worry about those microplastics potentially being introduced into your food.
Brandon,
so
we've
talking about it. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. We've only got about 30 seconds, so let me ask you two quick questions to wrap up. You mentioned the water bottles and the heat. I'm curious about washing them in the dishwasher to avoid buying new water bottles over and over. What effect that might have. And then real quickly, as we wrap up, tell us where to find out more about your business as well.
Yes, so with the plastic, really when the microplastics are going to be introduced is when your liquid, your water is actually in the water bottle and it gets heated. That's when those microplastics are going to be introduced. So if you're washing a plastic cup in the dishwasher, for example, and it heats up, it won't be until later that you're going to use it. And so you're less likely to introduce those microplastics.
Got it.
However, I would say that it's probably best to use glass cups, things that aren't plastic if you're going to drink or eat anything.
Gotcha.
And our business, like I said, we make alternatives to wet wipes. It's in a spray bottle, and so it's sprayed directly on a dry toilet paper. So you won't be using introducing those plastic fibers into the wastewater treatment facilities.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Great
Brandon.
tips, Brandon. Pristine Sprays is the business, and we will share this interview over on 9and10news.com in case you missed any of it. Thanks again for your time, Brandon. We hope you have a great Earth Day.
Yes, happy Earth Day.
Thank you so much for having me. Hope you all do too.